Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is the 1942 Cleveland Indians AL MLB baseball season. Again, the Tribe was playing in the American League, the junior circuit of Major League Baseball. Home games were played at League Park at East 66 in Lexington and also Cleveland Municipal Stadium downtown. The Tribe had a solid year in 1942. They finished in fourth place with a record of 75 and 79, 2 games under 500, winning percentage of .487, 28 games out of first place. The first place team was the New York Yankees, who were 103 and 51, winning percentage of .669. Wow. Second place, the Boston Red Sox, 93 and 59, 9 games out of first. Third place, the St. Louis Browns, 82 and 69. Fourth place, the Cleveland Indians, 75 and 79. Fifth place, the Detroit Tigers, 73 and 81. Sixth place, the Chicago White Sox, 66 and 82. Seventh place, the Washington Senators, 62 and 89. And in eighth and last place, the Philadelphia Athletics of Connie Mack, who never really rebounded in his final years and ended up moving to Kansas City and then Oakland. On December 7th, 1941, the Japanese military attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and that got the United States into the Second World War against Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. On January 15th, 1942, American President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued what was called the Green Light Letter to Baseball Commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis. And he said that baseball was needed for the public morale during the war and should continue. Bob Feller enlisted in the U.S. Navy 2 days after the Pearl Harbor attack and lost 3 seasons of his career. On July 7th at Cleveland Stadium, there was an exhibition game played to benefit the war effort. The American League All-Stars, who had won the All-Star game, played against a team of U.S. Armed Forces, including Bob Feller. And the American League All-Stars won that game 3-0. $143,000, $571 was raised for the war effort, war savings stamps. There were 16 night games at Cleveland Municipal Stadium in 1942. The Tribe hired 24-year-old Lou Boudreau as player-manager for the team. Now, the thing is, he was very mature, so it actually worked out. Hank Greenberg had been discharged from the U.S. Army, but re-enlisted shortly after the Pearl Harbor attack in the U.S. Army Air Corps. John Klima wrote this about Hank Greenberg, quote, "As a Jewish boy from the Bronx, he would be damned if he would go to sleep under a Nazi moon and wake beneath a rising sun." Now, the letter from President Franklin D. Roosevelt to Judge Landis on January 15th, 1942. Here's an excerpt, quote, I honestly feel that it would be best for the country to keep baseball going. There will be fewer people unemployed, and everybody will work longer hours and harder than ever before. And that means they ought to have a chance for recreation and taking their minds off their work more than ever before. Major League Baseball donated bats and balls to U.S. servicemen, as well as catcher's gear. So now most soldiers brought a baseball glove with them when they entered the service. But with these bats and balls and the catcher's gear, they could play games anywhere in the world where they might be stationed. Now, early in the war, the war news was bad. The Philippines fell in early 1942 to the Japanese. The Philippines was a U.S. territory. There were 75,000 prisoners of war taken, including 15,000 Americans. In the Bataan Death March in March of 1942, 600 Americans were beheaded, bayoneted, and beaten to death. Attendance was way down in 1942, actually all over MLB and also in Cleveland, because the public was focused on the war, and that itself was very compelling. Total attendance at Tribe games was 459,447, down 290,000 from the previous year, for an average of 5,890 fans per game. There were no baseball cards produced in 1942 because of the war effort and shortages. paper shortages, and baseball cards would be limited during the Second World War. Now again, the owner or the head of the ownership group was Alva Bradley, who was the head of the ownership group between 1927 and 1946. Alva Bradley. Again, Jack Graney was the Tribe radio broadcaster on WHK radio station. Graney played for the Tribe in 1908 and from 1910 to 1922, and was Tribe radio broadcaster between 1932 and 1953. Jack Graney. Roger Peckinpah was the general manager in 1942. He played for the Cleveland Naps in 1910 and from 1912 to 1913. Peckinpah was Tribe manager from 1928 to 1933 and in 1941, and was the Tribe general manager between 1942 and 1946. Roger Peckinpah. Now, the coaching staff included Ski Malilo, who was a Tribe coach from 1939 to 1940, in 1942, from 1945 to 1948, and in 1950. Ski Malilo. Bert Schotten was a new coach. Schotten was a Tribe coach between 1942 and 1945. Schotten was born in 1884 in Brownhelm Township, Lorain County, Ohio, and died in 1962 in Lake Wales, Florida at age 77. During his playing career, he batted .271 with 9 home runs and 290 RBIs. As a manager in MLB, he was .697 and .764 for a winning percentage of .477. Schotten played for the Philadelphia Phillies, Washington Senators, and St. Louis Cardinals between 1909 and 1923. As a manager, he was the Philadelphia Phillies manager between 1928 and 1932, Cincinnati Reds manager in 1934, manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers from 1947 to 1950. He also coached for the Cardinals, Reds, and Tribe. And he was the manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers when they won 2 National League titles in 1947 and 1949. They called him Barney. His name, nicknamed after race car driver Barney Oldfield. During his career, he stole 294 bases. He was one of the last MLB managers to wear everyday apparel rather than a club uniform during games. He was the manager of Jackie Robinson in 1947 with Brooklyn when Robinson integrated MLB and African Americans started playing in MLB. In the 2013 film 42, Schotten is played by Max Gale. In the minor leagues, Schotten played for the Steubenville Stubs and Wheeling Stogies. Bert Schotten. George Suss was another coach. He also was a catcher. He had a batting average of 1,000. He batted once, had a hit, scored a run, had a walk in 2 games. And Suss was a Tribe coach between 1941 and 1947, from 1948 to 1949. And he was a Tribe player between 1941 and 1944. George Suss. Lou Boudreau was the player manager. He was the starting shortstop. Boudreau batted .283 with 143 hits. He had 18 doubles, 10 triples, 2 home runs, 58 RBIs, 7 stolen bases, 75 walks in 147 games. Boudreau was a Tribe player between 1938 and 1941, and Tribe player manager between 1942 and 1950. After Boudreau was hired as the player manager, the Detroit newspaper wrote this quote, "Being made manager of that outfit after 2 years in the majors and having to face the irascible Cleveland public and press box full of second-guessers is enough to warrant calling out the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children." Cleveland sports writer Franklin Whitey Lewis wrote in 1941, quote, "If Clark Griffith owned the Indians, he would put Lou Boudreau in charge of the team, even if he were only 23 years old." Griffin was the first to hire so-called boy managers, and he hired Bucky Harris at age 28 and Joe Cronin at age 26, but actually Boudreau was younger than those two. Boudreau learned that there was an opening. The Tribe was looking to hire a manager, so he wrote a letter to the Tribe front office offering his services. Then a couple days later, he received a telephone call from Alva Bradley asking him to come to Cleveland for an interview, and he was hired. He did not serve in the military in the Second World War. He was rated 4F because of weak ankles, rejected by the U.S. military. Boudreau was an all-star in 1942 and played all 9 innings in the all-star game. He hit a home run, helped the American League win 3-1. After hiring Boudreau, Alva Bradley said this, quote, The more I inspected the qualifications of various other candidates, the more I became convinced that we couldn't afford not to take advantage of Lou Boudreau's natural gift of leadership. I didn't know of another man of whom I could be so certain that he would be thoroughly respected by the players, press, and public. Lou is smart. He's a great ball player, a fine young man, a fighter, and a leader. Lou Boudreau. Otto Denning was the starting catcher. Denning batted .210 with 45 hits. He scored 15 runs, 14 doubles, a home run, 19 RBIs, 18 walks in 92 games. Denning was born in 1912 in Hays, Kansas, and died in 1992 in Chicago, Illinois at age 79. For his career, he batted .222 with 1 home run and 32 RBIs. Denning played for the Cleveland Indians from 1942 to 1943, so had a brief MLB career. They called him Dutch. He was a player-manager in the minors in 1948, and as a manager in the minors in 1951. In the minor leagues, he played for the Buffalo Bisons, Colorado Springs Sky Sox, Milwaukee Brewers, Minneapolis Millers, Pensacola Flyers, and Waterloo Whitehawks. Otto Denning. Les Fleming played first base. Fleming batted .292 with 160 hits. He scored 71 runs, 27 doubles, 4 triples, 14 home runs, 82 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 106 walks in 154 games. Fleming was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942 and from 1945 to 1947. He was the American Association in the minor leagues MVP in 1948. Les Fleming. Ray Mack was the second baseman. Mack batted .225 with 108 hits. 14 doubles, 6 triples, 2 home runs, 45 RBIs, 9 stolen bases, 41 walks in 143 games. And Mack was with Cleveland from 1938 to 1946. Ray Mack. Ken Keltner was at third base. Keltner batted .287 with 179 hits, 34 doubles, really good, 4 triples, 6 home runs, 78 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 20 walks in 152 games. Keltner was with Cleveland from 1937 to 1944, and from 1946 to 1949. Ken Keltner. Jeff Heath was in left field. Heath batted .278 with 158 hits, 82 runs, 37 doubles, 13 triples, 10 home runs, 76 RBIs, 9 stolen bases, 62 walks in 147 games. Fine year for Jeff Heath. Heath played for Cleveland from 1936 to 1945. Jeff Heath. Roy Weatherly was in center field. Weatherly batted .258 with 122 hits, 61 runs, 23 doubles, 7 triples, 5 home runs, 39 RBIs, 8 stolen bases, 35 walks in 128 games. Weatherly was with Cleveland from 1936 to 1942, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1950. Roy Weatherly. Oris Hockett was in right field. Hockett batted .250 with 150 hits, 85 runs, 22 doubles, 7 triples, 7 home runs, 48 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, 45 walks in 148 games. And Hockett was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1944. Oris Hockett. Now, the bench players included Buster Mills, who was an outfielder. Mills batted .277 with 54 hits. He scored 19 runs, 4 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 26 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 23 walks in 80 games. Mills was born in 1908 in Ranger, Texas, and died in 1991 in Arlington, Texas at age 83. For his career, he batted .287 with 14 home runs and 163 RBIs. Mills played for the St. Louis Cardinals, Brooklyn Dodgers, Boston Red Sox, St. Louis Browns, New York Yankees, and Cleveland Indians. Between 1934 and 1946, he was the Cincinnati Reds manager in 1953 at the end of the season for only 8 games and had a 4-4 record. His given name was Colonel Buster. He was named after a Civil War great uncle. In the Second World War, when he was serving in the military, he enjoyed introducing himself to officers as Colonel Mills. Mills lettered in football, basketball, track, and baseball at the University of Oklahoma, was an all-Big Six quarterback, and got a geology degree in 1931. He was a tribe coach in 1946. He also was a coach with the White Sox, Reds, and Red Sox, and a manager in the minor leagues, as well as a scout for the Kansas City Athletics. and the New York Yankees. In the minor leagues, Mills played for the Elmira Red Wings, Mobile Red Warriors, and Newark Bears. Roger Mills. Jim Hegan was a spare catcher. Hegan batted .194 with 33 hits. He scored 10 runs, 5 doubles, 11 RBIs, a stolen base, 11 walks in 68 games. And Hegan was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and from 1946 to 1957. Jim Hegan. Gene DeSantos was a spare catcher. DeSantos batted .247 with 40 hits. He scored 14 runs, 5 doubles, 9 RBIs, a stolen base, 12 walks in 62 games. DeSantos was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1943, and in 1945, Gene DeSantos. Oscar Grimes played some second base. Grimes batted .179 with 15 hits. He scored 10 runs, 2 doubles, 2 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 13 walks in 51 games. And Grimes was with Cleveland from 1938 to 1942, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1946. Oscar Grimes. Fabian Gaffke played some outfield. Gaffke batted .164 with 11 hits. He scored 4 runs, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, a stolen base, 6 walks in 40 games. Gaffke was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and this was the end of his MLB career. Fabian Gaffke. Rusty Peters played some shortstop. Peters batted .224 with 13 hits. He scored 6 runs, 5 doubles, a triple, 2 RBIs, 2 walks in 34 games. Peters was with Cleveland from 1940 to 1944 and in 1946. Rusty Peters. Hank Edwards played some outfield. Edwards batted .250 with 12 hits. He scored 6 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, 7 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 5 walks in 13 games. And Edwards was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1943 and from 1946 to 1949. Hank Edwards. Ted Sepkowski played some second base. Sepkowski batted .100 with 1 hit and 10 at-bats in 5 games. He was born in 1923 in Baltimore, Maryland, and died in 2002 in Severna Park, Maryland at age 78. For his career, he batted .231 with 1 RBI. He played for the Cleveland Indians and New York Yankees between 1942 and 1947. He played in 19 total MLB games. During the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Coast Guard for 3 years. In the minor leagues, Sepkowski played for the Erie Senators, Hartford Chiefs, Kansas City Blues, Newark Bears, and Wellsville Braves. Ted Sepkowski. Eddie Robinson played some first base. Robinson batted .125 with 1 hit and 8 at-bats. He scored a run, had 2 RBIs, a walk in 8 games. Robinson was born in 1920 in Paris, Texas. He's still alive today at age 98. For his career, he batted .268 with 172 home runs. Wow, 723 RBIs. Robinson played for the Cleveland Indians, Washington Senators, Chicago White Sox, Philadelphia Athletics, New York Yankees, Kansas City Athletics, Detroit Tigers, and Baltimore Orioles between 1942 and 1957. He was a 4-time All-Star in 1949 and from 1951 to 1953 with the Senators, White Sox, and Athletics. Robinson won a World Series title in 1948 with the Tribe. He wrote a book, an autobiography. The title is Lucky Me, My 65 Years in Baseball, published in 2011. He's the last surviving member of the 1943 Navy World Series and the last living person from the 1948 Tribe, the last guy who's still around. He's the oldest living player to win a World Series title. He's also the oldest Tiger, Yankee, and Senator. Robinson was in the U.S. Navy in the Second World War and missed 1943 to 1945 seasons. After he retired, he was a coach for the Baltimore Orioles in player development. He was in the front office with the Houston Astros, farm director for the Kansas City Athletics with owner Charlie Finley in the mid-1960s. Robinson was the general manager of the Atlanta Braves between 1972 and 1976, also the general manager of the Texas Rangers between 1978 and 1982. He's also a scout for the Red Sox. He attended Game 6 of the 2016 World Series in Cleveland at Progressive Field, Tribe against the Cubs. Robinson lives in Fort Worth, Texas. In the minor leagues, he played for the Elmira Pioneers, Paris Dragons, and the Valdosta Trojans. What a career for Eddie Robinson. Bob Lemon played some third base. He batted 5 times, did not have a hit, struck out 3 times in 5 games. Lemon was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and from 1946 to 1958. So in the next several years, he would be serving in the U.S. military in the Second World War. Bob Lemon. Bob Feller was not with the Indians in 1942. He was in the U.S. Navy. Feller was with Cleveland from 1936 to 1941, and from 1945 to 1956, and was a Tribe Goodwill Ambassador to the end of his life. Feller enlisted in the U.S. Navy on December 9, 1941, 2 days after the Japanese attack at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Feller reportedly would not have been drafted. He was classified 3C, his family's sole support, because his father was very sick. He became a chief in the anti-aircraft gun crew on the USS Alabama, a 35,000-ton battleship with a crew of 2,900 men. Feller saw action in the Pacific, in the Gilbert Islands, Kwajalein Atoll, the Marshall Islands, Saipan, the Mariana Islands, New Guinea, Tarawa, Guam, the Philippines, and Iwo Jima. Feller was sworn into the U.S. Navy by Gene Tunney, who had been heavyweight boxing champion between 1926 and 1928. Feller said this, quote, "I thought we were losing." He's talking about the war. "You see what you can do. You got to get going to protect your country. We wanted to take on those guys and beat the living hell out of them, and I wanted to be a part of that. I'm glad to make whatever sacrifice is necessary. We've got to win this war to keep baseball on the map. I'm jumping in to help people wake up." Bob Feller. Bob Feller was really greatly missed in 1942 with the Tribe. Jim Bagby Jr. was the ace pitcher for the Tribe in 1942. He was 17-9 with an ERA of 2.96, 38 games, 35 starts, 16 complete games, 4 shutouts, and a save, 270 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 54 strikeouts. Bagby batted .189 with 18 hits. He scored 6 runs, had a double, a home run, 6 RBIs, a walk, and struck out 12 times. And Bagby was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1945. Jim Bagby Jr. Mel Harder was 13-14 with an ERA of 3.44, 29 games, all starts, 13 complete games, 4 shutouts, 198 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 74 strikeouts. Harder batted .119 with 8 hits. He scored 3 runs, had 2 RBIs, walked twice, and struck out 19 times. Harder was a Tribe player from 1928 to 1946, a Tribe coach from 1948 to 1963. He threw the first pitch at Cleveland Municipal Stadium in 1931, and he threw the last ceremonial pitch at Cleveland Municipal Stadium in 1993. Mel Harder. Chubby Dean was 8-11 with an ERA of 3.81, 27 games, 22 starts, 8 complete games, a save, 172 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 46 strikeouts. Dean batted .267 with 27 hits. He scored 4 runs, had a double, 7 RBIs, 11 walks, struck out 7 times in 70 games. And Dean was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1943. Chubby Dean. Al Smith was 10-15 with an ERA of 3.96, 30 games, 24 starts, 7 complete games, a shutout, 168 and a third innings pitched, and 66 strikeouts. Smith batted .250 with 15 hits. He scored 4 runs, 2 doubles, 5 RBIs, a walk, and struck out 7 times. And Smith was with Cleveland from 1940 to 1945. Al Smith. Al Milnar was 6-8 with an ERA of 4.13, 28 games, 19 starts, 8 complete games, 2 shutouts, 157 innings pitched, and 35 strikeouts. Milnar batted .171 with 12 hits. He scored 6 runs, had 2 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 7 RBIs, walked twice, and struck out 23 times. And Milnar was with Cleveland from 1936 and from 1938 to 1943. Al Milnar. Vern Kennedy was 4-8 with an ERA of 4.08, 28 games, 12 starts, 4 complete games, a save, 108 innings pitched, and 37 strikeouts. Kennedy batted .200 with 6 hits. He scored 3 runs, had a double, a stolen base, walked twice, and struck out 9 times in 33 games. Kennedy was born in 1907 in Kansas City, Missouri, and died in 1993 in Minden, Missouri at age 85. For his career, he was 104 and 132 with an ERA of 4.67 and 691 strikeouts. Kennedy pitched for the Chicago White Sox, Detroit Tigers, St. Louis Browns, Washington Senators, Cleveland Indians, Philadelphia Phillies, and Cincinnati Reds between 1934 and 1945. He was an All-Star in 1936 with the White Sox and an All-Star in 1938 with the Tigers. He threw a no-hitter in 1935 with the White Sox. Kennedy went to college at the University of Central Missouri, and the football field there is named after him. He also had a no-hitter his no-hitter was against the Tribe. Kennedy died at age 85 after he shed a smokehouse for curing meat collapsed on him. Very tragic. Vern Kennedy. Now the bullpen, Tom Ferrick was a relief pitcher. Ferrick was 3-2 with an ERA of 1.99, 31 games, 2 starts, 2 complete games, 3 saves, 81 and a third innings pitched, and 28 strikeouts. Ferrick batted .211 with 4 hits. He scored 3 runs, had a double, 2 RBIs, and struck out 5 times. Ferrick was born in 1915 in New York, New York, and died in 1996 in Lima, Pennsylvania at age 81. For his career, he was 40 and 40 with an ERA of 3.47 and 245 strikeouts and 56 saves. Ferrick pitched for the Philadelphia Athletics, Cleveland Indians, St. Louis Browns, Washington Senators, and New York Yankees between 1941 and 1952. He won a World Series title in 1950 with the Yankees. For 4 years, he was in the New York Seminary studying to be a Roman Catholic priest. At the same time, he was playing minor league baseball for the New York Giants, so he did not pursue that career of becoming a priest. In the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Navy. He starred in the 1944 Pacific Service World Series, Army versus Navy in Hawaii. In 1947 and 1948 with the Senators, he was among league leaders in saves. In 1950 with the Yankees, he played a key role, and manager Casey Stengel said, quote, "Our most important individual performer in our drive to the top," referring to Tom Ferrick. In 1953, he was in the minors. He was a Tribe player coach. He's also coached for the Reds, Phillies, Tigers, Kansas City Athletics, and a scout with the A's and Kansas City Royals. Scout for 20 years with the Kansas City Royals. Tom Ferrick. Harry Eisenstadt was another relief pitcher. Eisenstadt was 2-1 with an ERA of 2.45, 29 games, 1 start, 2 saves, 47 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 19 strikeouts. Eisenstadt batted .250 with 1 hit and 4 at-bats, and he struck out once. Eisenstadt was with Cleveland from 1939 to 1942, and this was the end of his MLB career. In the Second World War, he served in the U.S. Navy. Harry Eisenstadt. Joe Heving was another bullpen pitcher. His record was 5-3 with an ERA of 4.86, 27 games, 2 starts, 3 saves, 46 and a third innings pitched, and 13 strikeouts. Heving batted 7 times and did not have a hit and walked once. Heving was with Cleveland from 1937 to 1938, and from 1941 to 1944. Joe Heving. Red Embry was 3-4 with an ERA of 3.86, 19 games, 6 starts, 2 complete games, 63 innings pitched, and 44 strikeouts. Embry batted .133 with 2 hits and 15 at-bats, and he scored a run. He had a walk and struck out twice. And Embry was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and from 1944 to 1947. Red Embry. Steve Gromek was 2-0 with an ERA of 3.65, 14 games, 44 and a third innings pitched, and 14 strikeouts. Gromek batted .333 with 5 hits and 15 at-bats. He scored 2 runs, had a double, a triple, 2 RBIs, walked twice, and struck out once. And Gromek was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1953. Steve Gromek. Ray Pote was 1-3 with an ERA of 5.40, 4 games, all starts, a complete game, 18 and a third innings pitched, and 8 strikeouts. Pote batted 5 times and did not have a hit. He scored a run, walked once, and struck out 3 times. Pote was born in 1917 in Chicago, Illinois, and died in 1990 in Oak Lawn, Illinois at age 72. For his career, he was 22-30 with an ERA of 4.55 and 400 innings pitched. Pote pitched for the Cleveland Indians, New York Giants, and Pittsburgh Pirates. Between 1942 and 1949, in the minor leagues, he was 91-44 with a winning percentage of .674. He was the first MLB player to have a season cycle, 4 total hits for a season, and those hits were a single, double, triple, and home run. The minor leagues, Pote pitched for the Cedar Rapids Raiders, Indianapolis Indians, Leakesville Drapers, and Spray Triplets. Ray Pote. Clint Brown was 1-1 with an ERA of 6.00, 7 games, 9 innings pitched, and 4 strikeouts. Brown batted once, did not have a hit, and struck out once. Brown was with Cleveland from 1928 to 1935, and from 1941 to 1942. So this was the end of his time in Cleveland. He's buried in Lakewood Park Cemetery in Rocky River, Ohio. Clint Brown. Joe Krakowskis had no decisions and an ERA of 3.86. 3 games, 7 innings pitched, and 2 strikeouts. He batted twice and did not have a hit. Krakowskis was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and in 1946, Joe Krakowskis. Allie Reynolds had no decisions and an ERA of 0.00. 2 games, 5 innings pitched, 2 strikeouts, and 0 earned runs allowed. Reynolds batted twice and did not have a hit. He was born in 1917 in Bethany, Oklahoma, and died in 1994 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, at age 77. For his career, he was 182 and 107 with an ERA of 3.30 and 1,423 strikeouts. Really good. Reynolds pitched for the Cleveland Indians and New York Yankees between 1942 and 1954. He was a 6-time All-Star in 1945 with the Tribe, and in 1950 and 1952 to 54 with the Yankees. He won 6 World Series titles. 1947 and from 1949 to 1953 with the Yankees. He was the American League ERA leader in 1952. He was a 2-time American League strikeout leader in 1943 and 1952. Reynolds threw 2 no-hitters. He's at Monument Park. He's an honoree at Yankee Stadium. They called him Super Chief. He went to the Oklahoma Agricultural and Mechanical College. He was a multi-sport athlete. He playing on the baseball, football, and track teams. His father was a preacher at the Church of the Nazarene, and his mother was a Muskogee Creek American Indian. He was drafted by the New York Giants in the NFL, but did not sign. The minor leagues, in 1942, he was 18-7 with an ERA of 1.56 and 11 strikeouts. More than that. In 1946, he was traded by the Tribe to the New York Yankees for second baseman Joe Gordon. He starred with the Yankees on 5 straight World Series winning teams. He threw his 2 no-hitters in 1951. Many American Indian players were nicknamed Chief, and Reynolds was nicknamed Super Chief. Yankee teammate and later American League president Bobby Brown said, quote, "The Santa Fe Railroad at that time had a crack train called the Super Chief. It was known for its elegance, its power, and its speed. We always felt the same applied to Allie for the same reasons." Reynolds is in the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame, and at Oklahoma State, the baseball field is named in his honor. In 1993, he won the Jim Thorpe Lifetime Achievement Award, and the Allie Reynolds Award was established for the high school senior in Oklahoma who exhibits scholarship, leadership, contributions, and character. After he retired, Reynolds was a successful businessman investing in oil wells in Oklahoma. He was the president of the National Hall of Fame for famous American Indians. Allie Reynolds. Pete Center had no decisions and an ERA of 16.20. 1 game, 3 1/3 innings pitched, 6 earned runs allowed, and 4 walks. Center batted once, did not have a hit, and struck out in his one at bat. He was born in 1912 in Hazel Green, Kentucky, and died in 2004 in Campton, Kentucky at age 92. For his career, he was 7-7 with an ERA of 4.10, 160 1/3 innings pitched. Center pitched for the Cleveland Indians from 1942 to 1943, and from 1945 to 1946. He went to Morehead State University. In the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Armed Forces. In the minor leagues, he played for the Greenberg Trojans, Jackson Senators, Knoxville Smokies, New Orleans Pelicans, and the Wilkes-Barre Barons. Pete Center. And finally, Paul Calvert had no decisions and an ERA of 0.00. 1 game, 2 innings pitched, 2 strikeouts, and 0 earned runs allowed. He did not bat. Calvert was born in 1917 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and died in 1999 in Sherbrooke, Quebec, Canada at age 81. For his career, he was 9-22, with an ERA of 5.31 and 102 strikeouts. Calvert pitched for the Cleveland Indians, Washington Senators, and Detroit Tigers between 1942 and 1951. In the minor leagues, he played for the Baltimore Orioles, Cedar Rapids Raiders, Modesto Reds, and Seattle Rainiers. He also pitched in Mexico for the Alijadores de Tampico and the Tuneros de San Luis Potosí. After the season, the World Series was played. The National League champions, St. Louis Cardinals, defeated the American League champions, the New York Yankees, 4-1. Hall of Famers in the World Series included umpire Cal Hubbard. For the Cardinals, Billy Southworth, the manager who played for Cleveland in 1913 and 1915, Enos Slaughter, and Stan Musial. For the Yankees, Joe McCarthy, the manager, Bill Dickey, Joe DiMaggio, Joe Gordon, Phil Rizzuto, and Red Ruffing. Game 2 of the World Series was in St. Louis, and Billy Southworth, manager of the Cardinals, Billy Southworth's son, Billy Jr., was moments after the game ended, was piloting a U.S. Army bomber, a B-17 bomber airplane, which flew over the ballpark moments after the game-winning hit, right after Stan Musial had the game-winning hit to score Enos Slaughter. This World Series was the first to be broadcast by shortwave radio. American GIs listened across the globe to the action. American prisoners of war at the University of Santo Tomas in Manila, Philippines, followed the World Series. And there was a quote, "We got full reports on the 1942 World Series through our underground system in Manila. The people on the outside would pick up the game on the short wave and slip us the pitchers and catchers and inning by inning scores through the fence. The Japanese never did catch on." Baseball historian John Klima wrote, quote, "The 42 World Series stayed with Americans more than any other series during the war. The Cardinals were like the war effort itself, young and homegrown, in need of veteran leadership to topple an enemy with stuffy leaders and a significant numerical advantage early in the game. The archetype resonated with the American people. It wasn't just the story of the 1942 baseball season, but the story of the war." Now, the MVPs for the 1942 season in the American League: Joe Gordon of the New York Yankees, who was a Tribe player from 1947 to 1950, and a Tribe manager from 1958 to 1960. And in the National League, Mort Cooper of the St. Louis Cardinals. So that's the story of the 1942 Cleveland Indians. They had a good year. We really miss Bob Feller. God bless the fellows who played for the Cleveland Indians in 1942 and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the Spanish-American War veterans, First World War veterans, and Second World War veterans. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp statue and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Euclid Avenue Electricity, Severance Hall stalwarts, Cleveland Museum of Art enthusiasts, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum rebels, Christmas Story House happy people, Old Arcade admirers, Playhouse Square seers, Settlers Landing Park purists, First Energy Stadium friends, Progressive Field pals, Quicken Loans Arena enthusiasts, Tribe, Browns, Monsters, Gladiators, and Fusion, the Cleveland's women's pro football team, Cleveland City of Champions. Cleveland City of Champions. Before you know it, it'll be opening day 2019. Go Tribe. This is our year. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You might consider checking out our website at Adventures in History with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.